Well, thanks for joining us today. My name is Brian Krejci, and I'm here with Bart, Dunne, and Alyssa Roberts. We're going to be chatting about the Unicorn Path and many of its 17 principles. We're going to try to break down each one of them because 17 sounds so overwhelming, but it's actually not when we break it down and get it into some smaller steps. So, Bart, welcome.
Thank you.
The Unicorn Path. What the heck is that?
Well, I call it a path, and then we'll talk about the unicorn next. But I call it a path because the idea of mastery or anything else is not there. So you're just constantly walking the path. People are gonna get knocked off of it. It's okay. Get help, resolve, use your tools to get back on the path. But it's you just keep working and keep walking the path. You'll never be perfect, but it's fun. If you fall in love with it, it's fun to improve. And the unicorn side, I mentioned this before, but it's fun to repeat myself since I only know a few words. That unicorns are special, and they're whimsical and they're mythical and all that other stuff, but more than anything they're special. And I thought it was important to have a really special designation for somebody that stands out in the workplace.
So this is a system or a program of positive change to mold these people into high performers and somebody who stands out?
It's a matter of perspective. Not everybody would think that being incredible in the workplace is positive. For instance, Fidel Castro would not have appreciated that at all. But I find it very positive. I think it's if you're going to work, you don't have to sell your soul. You don't have to do crazy stuff. But just be good at it. And part of it is just being nice, being a good teammate, trying to get better. So if you're going to take somebody's money, work to stand out. You don't have to sell your soul.
Excellent. So you've got, you call yourself an idea chef. Maybe some of these aren't original ideas, but you've put together a new recipe. So let's talk about the recipe. You've got 17 principles. And, I'm someone who's actually currently on this path. And when I first took a look at it, I said, 17 principles. Where do I even begin? So what I would like to do is just break down little action steps so we can start today or tomorrow and, start on this journey of positive change. So your first principle is walk the path of excellence. Is this principle just a decision? Is the action here just to make a choice?
It starts that way. You've got to resolve to want to be excellent. Most people don't. In the book I talk about the fact that most employees are disengaged. They've just decided that it's not worthwhile to be excellent. They're going to go to work. They're going to avoid getting fired. They're going to get their check, and if they are going to wring some joy out of life, it's going to come somewhere else other than work. I think it's nice. Let's work. Walk the path of excellence. Decide to get better all the time. Decide that it's worthwhile. And frankly, even in my advanced age, I like it. I like the idea of always looking to get better, always looking to be excellent.
Alyssa, you're on this path. Were you intimidated by the word excellence, or how many principles there were, or even just that first principle?
Yeah, I think I was a little bit intimidated by the grand scheme of things and the whole idea of 17 principles. But excellence has always been something that I've strive for, so that word wasn't necessarily too big of a scare for me, but definitely the 17 principles part of it, I was a little bit nervous, but once I started breaking them down, it really did get easy. And talking about the first principle, walking the path of excellence, and talking about making a choice, it really is deciding what you want for your life and taking a hold of it, and so it really just comes down to choosing what you want out of life and having that open-mindedness and the open-heartedness, and just the willingness to learn in general and get better, and just knowing that there is no downside to getting better and improving physically, mentally, financially, emotionally. So everything I had to say to myself was, stop saying that you're going to do something and just start doing it.
That's excellent. Thank you. So we've got principle number 2. Purpose is a superpower. Can you speak to that very briefly, and then we can actually look at what it means to get started with that?
Well, in the book I talk about some extraordinary achievements that were driven by the will of a purpose, the desire to do it. It's having a powerful purpose turns on components of the brain that just make us want to do more. And when things get tough, you resolve to your purpose, live your purpose, rather than just live.
This one, for me, there was some information that you wrote in the book about the ant and the elephant, which refer to my subconscious and my conscious thinking. And whereas my conscious mind responds to intellect, text, sort of hardcore data and information, my subconscious responds to visual and emotional stimulation. So one action step for this, which we could get started on, was a vision board, which is something, if you would like to speak, what's a good, real simple example of a vision board? What goes on a vision board?
Well, I've got 2 pictures of my wife, got a camper, got a cabin in the woods, and I've got a few other things, but what I've learned along the way is, and this is the purpose, a big why can drive you. A big why is a purpose. And what happens with whys is the way the ant and the elephant is the conscious and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind reacts to how to whys. Conscious mind hows and whats. It also is visual. So I stare at my vision board all the time. It's my screensaver, and I think it helps me just get aligned to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
That makes sense. And as for me, I realized that the deeper I can plant that seed of positive change or my commitments or my goals, the deeper I can have those coming from within me, is the more likely I am to achieve those and live those and feel those every day. So let's move to principle 3. What you commit to gets done.
It's simple, idea chef stuff. I didn't invent it, but it's the idea that commitment, how important commitment is. There's so much competition for our activities, for our actions. And if we commit to something, let's commit to the most important things. Let's define our goals. Let's get after them and get them done. If we don't get things done, it's because of the absence of commitment. Life's hard. We're never going to be perfect, but focus and commitment gets us where we need to go.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, for me, this was something as simple as beginning as trying to eliminate. I just did it right there. I mean, I'm eliminating non-committal language, words like trying or I'm going to attempt, things like that, to where if I want to get into work on Monday morning and hit the ground running, I don't say to myself, I'm going to try and get in on Monday and start. I mean, that's a good thought already, but if I say to myself, I'm going to get into work and start Monday, hit the ground running, and be on pace right away, there's a whole difference there that I think has a huge effect coming from internal instead of external sources. And something that, an action step for this is just listing our goals, getting them on paper, posting them in places where I'm going to see them, and that all these principles sort of work together. This goes back to our purpose, and seeing those goals is going to help them get a little bit deeper in our persons. Principle 4. You can change or you can stay the same.
Change is hard. It's the crueler version of improvement, but it's hard. It attacks our comfort zone. Our brain says, "Oh no, don't do this. Come over and hang out with me. Isn't it better just not to do anything differently?" But what happens is if you don't change, you get the same thing. So if you're not happy, if you're not making much money, if you're not moving along at work, if you're not happy with what you do, and if you don't change, that's just what you're going to get. The concept of luck, it happens, but even then, people kind of revert back to who they are after a while. There's a lot of studies on that. Getting used to change is the most challenging thing about the unicorn path, and it's almost impossible for me to do it alone. So what we advocate is let's all help each other. We've got common values, accountability groups, and just friends, sharing things, vulnerability, always looking for help, because the idea of just fighting the powerful pull of your brain against change alone was too much for me.
That's a great action step. Getting people on your team to help you get out of that comfort zone, because comfort zones are exactly that. They're comfortable. Disruption, change, altering something, those are all sort of freaky. Were you resistant to change? Did you find yourself sort of easy to get changing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely at first it's a scary word, and improvement is scary in itself too. But the way that I looked at it, and the biggest motivator for me was, I just thought, if you did the exact same thing right now, same job, same life, same network, same bank account, for the next 5 years, if you had the same things, where would you be? And are you okay with that? And for me, I was not okay with that. I really, that was something that was huge to me and really resonated when I heard that, was I don't want to be in the same place as I am right now in 5 years. And so, even though change is hard and it's scary and it's a big word, it really is, it comes down to what you truly want out of life, and get to it is all I can say.
Thanks. Yeah, that's perfect. And that's, that's an action step right there, is reflection. Let's take a look at where we are and where we want to be. Principle 5, you get what you tolerate. Is this sort of another principle that is sort of just a choice or a decision, or is there an action step here?
Well, it's the absence of a decision for most people. People just kind of cruise through. If you're unhappy with a job, and then you identify that you're happy at a time, and then 20 years later you're still there, that's a classic example of you getting what you tolerate, and it happens all too often. It's a big reason why there's so much disengagement. But we don't move because we don't want to change. We don't tolerate people that are, we shouldn't tolerate people that are harmful to our careers, harmful to our lives. We, by having the courage and the commitment to clean that out, we're going to live happier lives.
It's another example of how all these principles sort of work together, and that's why that you have the recipe how you have it. Principle 6, the power of love. We all want to have our work as a source of happiness and joy. Can you tell us about the power of love and maybe an action step to get there?
First of all, I do this. It's my standard love move. So power of love, it's just so much more fun if you love what you do. And why wouldn't you do it? There's been, CPA, it's pretty easy not to like CPA work. Especially in the old days for the PCs, I was sitting there with pencils and doing stuff and squinting my eyes and just being all angry, watching my hair fall out. Look what happened.
Did you use an abacus back
I did. Stone tablets were cool. They were in. We were just making the transition. And the day goes so long and you're staring and go, how many more minutes till I go? It doesn't cost anything more to love your job. But this is another one where if you just decide, a lot of people just think of love as a wave. If it washes over you, okay, you're in love. And if it doesn't, you're not. And I believe that you shouldn't be reactive. You got to be proactive. If you see things where you're working that you don't love, work to fix them. Get help. Work with your team. Work with your boss. Same thing in life, although this book's not about business. Be proactive. Decide that you want to love your job. Don't just make the decisions based on how things hit you.
Excellent. One of my favorites, principle number 7, clarity is king. Why is clarity so important?
In the absence of clarity, there's anxiety. And there's a lack of clarity in almost everything we do. So when we interview, we don't know what the next steps are. They go, I'll call you back. When we start, when's our next raise? When's our next promotion? What's our career path? How do we interact? What's the right time to interrupt? What's the right time to bring something to somebody's attention that there's a problem? How do we have tough discussions? There's so many things that call out for clarity, because in the absence of clarity, you get chaos.
That helps a lot, even if clarity, I'm applying clarity to my list of goals, and I have a goal that may seem far off. It helps for me personally to break it down. What are the steps that I need to take to get there? And then it becomes a lot more clear, becomes a lot more attainable, and I can cross them off as we go, keeping score. Principle 8, you can have systems or you can have chaos. So how does this apply? I can see how this would apply to like a company or a business, but how does it apply to an individual? Just like being organized, or?
I like to talk about the freeway. It's something we can all relate to. So everybody goes, all we need to do is we need to document how things need to be done. Well, we've got a freeway, and the freeway's got laws this thick. It's got traffic pamphlets. You got to pass a test. There are signs everywhere. There's highway patrol people. They're gender sensitive people. And yet people still drive crazy. There's at least 20 different kinds of driving styles. And so the idea of really understanding and being systematic about what you're doing, to be able to understand what you're doing, identify potential defects, and make corrections. And then with that system, you get clarity because you understand what you're doing along the way. So another idea where the aspect where they all interrelate. But it is chaotic. And I know we're growing fast right now. And we live these principles very hard, but we've got a little bit of chaos going on, and the anxiety that comes from the chaos is pretty crazy. The good news is, we're governed by the faith that we know that we're moving in the direction of systems.
Excellent. Alyssa, are you systemic? Are you chaotic? You like this principle, yes?
I do like this principle a lot. I think most people do know me as a very organized and put together type of person, but I wasn't always that way, definitely. It definitely came from anxiety and getting fed up with the fact that most of my thoughts and tasks and kind of like Bart said, of getting on the freeway and being in the zone, I would just funnel all those thoughts up here and not be able to visualize them, and it would get overwhelming and it would be too much to handle. And so that's when I started getting systematic and using calendars and to-do lists and things that will help me get more systematic and put things in place. And once I started doing that, it really did relieve the anxiety, one, and also just help me have better clarity of my goals and where I'm going. So
I can definitely agree with that. Let's move to principle 9. Conflict is the ultimate competitive advantage. Conflict is when you mean this here, you don't necessarily mean combat. You just mean conflict. I mean, would an action step here be just resolving to be great at conflict?
Yes, but that's hard too. It's hard without clarity. It's hard without other people. So first of all, let's talk about why conflict's important. The core, the essence of everything on the unicorn path is we get better. We make ourselves better, we make our team better, and we make the company better. And by far the best way to make people better, and even make each other better, is to engage in difficult conversations, to critique people. And too often in environments, they try to avoid any kind of conflict, any kind of confrontation, any hurt feelings, at the expense of not being able to improve. So all these great opportunities to make people better are being left unsaid. We want to have wonderfully positive, successful conflict. And we do it by, we have written descriptions of how each one of us likes to hear different tough things. And we all resolve, please make me better. Even if you make a mistake, give me conflict. I want to be better. We'll work it out later on. We'll forgive each other, but let's all get better.
That makes sense. I mean, when we talk about conflict here, we're talking about tough feedback, and my action step for this particular principle was making the choice to be great at conflict, and that didn't mean me going out and creating conflict. That didn't mean me going out and giving a bunch of tough feedback. That meant starting with setting an example of how to receive feedback, or setting an example of how to engage in that conflict. So when it came to me, I was appreciative, grateful for that conflict, and then I think that sort of sets the tone and the example for future when eventually you're ready to give it.
So I'm not outstanding at giving tough feedback to people that I don't know. For example, when I'm driving and I use my horn for a little tough feedback, it's not well received. A big part of it is both sides, both the deliverer and the receiver, need to understand, and that's a big part of the unicorn path. We train, we work on that, and if the whole team understands, it's very easy to have highly productive, tough conversations.
And this is an aspect that works in business and also in your personal life as well, is what I've realized. Principle 10. Change your world with communication.
You know, this is an interesting one because you talk about in the unicorn path, we want to be better. We want to be better than everybody, and not better like snooty or anything else, but we want the world's competitive, and we don't need to put anybody down. We need to cheat. We don't need to demean anybody to be better. And so when you think about communication, most people their skills are diminishing. Faces in the phones, email versus talking, and communication is powerful. You know, I believe. Maybe it's because I'm old, we'll check in with Alyssa in a minute. But I believe that the quality of our life is based on the quality of our relationships, and the quality of our relationships are based on the quality of our communication. So why wouldn't we always be working to get better at it? And there's so much we went through this, and we're looking at, there's 2.3 billion sites that you can go to on Google if you search, how do I improve my communication? So it's infinite. It's kind of fun. And it's great to see the difference.
It's a good, it all makes sense, and that's a good action step. You know, learn more about how my communication, learn more about how to become a better, effective communicator. Learn more about body language, tone, things like that. And that's a perfect way to get started. Principle 11, win as a team. True or false? Success is a solo effort.
Well, I thought so. Until I crashed and burned. It's I talk about the Superman, and it's kind of fun and intoxicating to try to do everything yourself, but it's not sustainable, and frankly, it's not effective. One of the times where I was really proud of how productive I was, I did the equivalent, from my perspective, of about 4 executives' work at about 75%. So I was like, wow, I'm pretty cool, but I had a lot of problems from only being 75% in the 4 times things that I used to do. I was angry. I wasn't training other people. It wasn't sustainable. I had no succession plan, and so in spite of what I perceived to be high performance, I wasn't a high performer.
And it's pretty obvious. I mean, you mentioned to me once a company that you worked at where the ground rules for asking a question were only ask the question once you've exhausted every effort yourself to find the answer. And while that makes sense, we're not going to bother each other, and you should be able to find the answer on your own. Imagine the time we would save if I didn't take 3 hours to find the answer, didn't come up with it, if I would have just said, hey, could you show me this? Even though I hadn't exhausted every effort to find that answer, I checked. I had a bit of a challenge. I asked. It's not like I was coming to you before I looked at myself, but it seems a lot more productive to win as a team.
We talked about this at a very exciting company meeting today, and it's look for help faster. I believe human nature is exhaust all possibilities and go. It's at the second you get assigned a project, think about how you can get help, how you can get other people involved. Oh, that wasn't me. But so let's help matters. Our success is going to come from others lifting us up.
I love that principle. Number 12, the less you fear, the better your life.
Yeah.
Sounds simple. It's. I know from attempting this principle personally that it's a little bit more difficult than it sounds. Do you want to touch on that principle?
Yeah, I've been dying to talk about this. I may have already. So I love baseball. Baseball, it runs in my family. My grandfather invented the batting tee.
No kidding.
So I had baseball flowing through my veins. And I was atrocious at baseball. And it was 2 layers of fear. The ball, which is stupid, but I didn't seem so at the time. But even more importantly, fear of failure. Striking out, errors. And it just paralyzed me, and I was just awful because of that. And I carried that through me the whole time, just going, that was the single reason why I wasn't good. I would have never been maybe outstanding. And you go on to high school, and then come back to your high school reunions, and you think about all the people that you should have dated or whatever, but you were afraid for rejection. And then I came to the conclusion that fear has never really done me any good.
Right.
I'm still scared of snakes and a couple other things, and I naturally am kind of prone to move towards fear, but I try to fight out of it as quickly as I can, because then I become more effective.
This one, I had a personal experience with this one recently, and the action step for me was I either got it down on paper or shared it with someone, and as soon as it left my internal area or left my mind, it seemed to shrink. It seemed to take the power out of it. It seemed to allow me to look at it from a different perspective. And so, I recommend that being an action step on that one, just as a start. But, that was my personal experience with that.
We were, I'm sorry, we were just having, I was just having a conversation with somebody in the office, and the term under promise and over deliver came up. And I hate that because it's a lie. Liars out there that love that. But it's designed for people that hate to be rebuked, hate to fail, hate to look bad. They fear these things. The right answer, and what I told the person is, hey, don't fear not hitting the project on time. Don't fear not being perfect. Fear not trying. And frankly, I think that under promise and over deliver kind of skews you in that direction. Hey, you don't need to do that much as long as you set even lower expectations. I boo that. Boo.
Ooh. Principle 13 is set your operating scale on effective. So I'm assuming this isn't just like flip a switch, be effective. It's more of a process. What's the action step to get started here?
Well, this is another experiential thing that I learned along the way. To paraphrase Fredo, I'm smart. I know things. I am smart like at 4 different things and nothing else. Ask me I can't hook the cable up on the TV. I can't do any of that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty smart at like 4 or 5 things. And I came to understand that it wasn't good enough. That intelligence alone is not what it takes to get to where you need to get to. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of intelligent people that are being surpassed by people that just have average intelligence. And I fell in love with emotional intelligence, EQ. That's the idea of controlling yourself and compelling people. Just in general, the theme of it's just being a good person, being nice, being a great listener, being somebody that people feel comfortable around. The essence of being a leader, and I believe that EQ, emotional intelligence, is more important than regular intelligence. Hey, it's nothing wrong with having intelligence. I need my TV hooked up. But emotional intelligence rules the day. The most successful people have the highest level of emotional intelligence.
There's a lot of data coming out recently that supports that as well. One of all of our favorites here, Principle 14, is you can't be great if you aren't good. But when we're talking about good here, we're referring to what? Kindness, helping others, spreading joy. Is that correct?
Yeah, a big part of the unicorn path too is sustainability. So the idea, it's going to last a long time. Don't just kind of burst out and then poof, it goes away. And kindness matters. So if you believe that your success can come from other people lifting you up, be somebody people want to help. And kindness is a big part of that. It's huge. It's easy to be kind. The idea of, there's all these, and you're too young for this, but all these drama soap opera shows where everybody's stabbing each other and cheating each other and doing all that kind of stuff. It's just not necessary to live a nice, happy life. So I want to surround myself with kind people that are committed to helping each other.
Alyssa, you love this principle.
I do, absolutely. And I think that an action step, if you will, for it, that I have taken into place in my life too, and it was a struggle. It started with baby steps, but it was learning how to compliment people. And, walking down the street, you might get all kinds of compliments, and, believe it or not, I was a very anti-social person and had a little bit of social anxiety, and I would have never pictured myself being in front of a camera right now, but I, worked towards it, and so getting there was also, getting out of my comfort zone and complimenting others. And so it started with my family and friends, whenever I could, just thinking about one compliment a day, and just spreading joy that way. And eventually, it started building, and talking to strangers wasn't so hard, and, finding one person on the street to just compliment them, and watching their face and watching them, react to what you've given them, and the little bit of confidence and joy that they feel after, is kind of that like motivator to keep going and keep doing it. And in the workplace too, like it really does change when you just surround yourself with kindness.
That's awesome. Yeah, it just really just goes to show that something simple goes a really long way. Bart, principle 15, tempo and rhythm matter in business too. Tempo and rhythm, we're talking about speed and pace here, right?
We don't talk about important things often enough. Think about all the, sky rockets at night. Why do I know that? Because I've heard it and I've heard it and I've heard it and I've heard it. Prayers, sayings. We've heard it and we've heard it and we've heard it. But what's important to us, our values, our goals, principles, things that they don't get talked about often enough in a business environment. Typically, the average business will have maybe a nice big group event once a quarter, and they'll talk about all kinds of cool and sexy stuff. And then it'll wash off. So what we believe is that frequency matters. So if you don't talk about it, you won't be great. The book isn't meant to be read and then that's it. It's meant to be lived, and it's to be lived frequently every day, talked about with friends and coworkers and people that are walking the path with you. And that's the only way we can absorb the principles enough to change.
It's a good way to understand the rhythm of this. It's not like that's perfect. We don't read it and put it down. There's got to be a rhythm to it. We read it, we revisit it. We check out with others. We revisit it. We check in with others. I like that rhythm referring to it. Keeping score to get more is principle 16. So, talk about a scoreboard. What does that look like?
Well, it's in the book, but I talk about, as a kid, we would tease other kids that would suggest, why don't we just play a game where we don't keep score? I mean, it was essential and it was mandatory, and we did it all the time. And then gradually we get older and we get older. And as much as I love playing games, and especially sports as a kid growing up, this is more meaningful. This pays the bills. This supports my life and everything I want to do. But yet I still don't get the benefit of keeping score, the accountability, the accomplishment. Where do I stand? Am I winning or I'm losing? What do I need to do to improve? And so many people equate a scoreboard with micromanagement, with mean and painful. I just equate it with improvement. Hey, let's do what we can to improve. It doesn't have to be mean or vicious. Gargoyles don't need to hang off the scoreboard. It's meant to guide us all. And a great impact that we can have is, I walk by Alyssa's scoreboard when we get one, because we're still working on it, and I see that she's doing something exceptionally well. It'll be inspirational to me. It'll be a benchmark. I'm not afraid to steal her ideas. I am an idea thief. And so the scoreboard is there to drive everybody's performance.
I had a little trouble getting started with this scoreboard, so I basically took my goals and applied them and made my scoreboard out of my goals, as a starter. And obviously this thing, I can change it if I want to or add to it. But if one of my goals is to read more books, to my scoreboard goes, how many books have I read? And it's simple. I can see a score there as it moves up, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a good way to get started with a scoreboard, I think, if you would agree.
I agree. I always agree with you.
Principle 17.
Ooh, 17.
Here we go.
Everybody says it. Prove it.
I have a good friend that owns an air conditioning company. And every air conditioner company, every air conditioning repairman that ever knocks on your door says that they're spectacular, they're the best. And quite a few of them are not quite so good. Quite a few of them are there just to take your money and make you feel bad about yourself. And it kind of works that way in the workplace too. Everybody shows up in an interview, except for the people just interviewing maybe to keep their unemployment going. And they go, I'm the best. If you hire me, I will change your life. But the people hearing it don't get it, because they hear it all the time. Everybody's doing it. They never bring proof. In our case, by walking the path and documenting how you walk the path, we have a tool for that. You can really stand out in the workplace, because the things we talked about, these other 16 principles, are fantastic, and you can talk about the principles. But if you can prove that you live them, you're going to be highly desirable in the workplace.
Walk the walk is what you're saying, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
and prove it.
So, for people that want to get involved, you've got a virtual course coming up. I know that starts next Wednesday with your live session. So it's, from what I understand, it's going to be weekly courses. You're going to have access to the workbook. You're going to get a copy of the book along with some other goodies, and then weekly live support and training from you along the way.
Yeah, it's 13 weeks, which kind of coincides with a college level class. I kind of equate it as the equivalent of intensity of an MBA class, 4 or 5 hours of homework. Unlike an MBA class, it'll really change your life. An MBA class will teach you facts and figures. It might get you a job. This is going to turn you into a top 1% performer, should you choose to walk the path. The people that want to improve, want to help other people improve, and want to make their company better. And by the way, the reason we make the company better isn't just to be a brown noser, it's so that they make you better. The more that you invest in them, the more they're going to reciprocate back to you. And then you live the other 16 principles that we talked about. These kind of attributes aren't found in business, and I talk to business owners all the time. If we could just have had more and more of those people, you could just only imagine, what we could have done. And that's why a subtitle in the first part of the book is "The Ones with the Most Unicorns Wins." Become a unicorn, grow with other unicorns, and watch your companies dominate the competition. The people that don't care, that don't have great teamwork, that aren't having fun, that aren't happy, that don't love what they do. A group of unicorns together can conquer people that just aren't caring.
I know, I'm excited for the course, not only for the material, but access to this network of people who are like-minded in the sense of like, yes, I want positive change. Yes, I'm going to strive for success. Yes, I'm going to strive for excellence. So being a part of that community is just going to make myself better as well. We'll have a link to the course posted, and thanks for sharing your time with us today.
It was fun. Woo! Thanks, everybody.